Welcome to the People's Verdict. I'm your host, Patrick Soko. And interesting enough, today I've been joined by Mr. Martin Mulenga, who is going to be my guest to help me discuss various issues. He is the Deputy Secretary General for the National Restoration Party, NAREP, and we are discussing the impact of the high cost of living. And I want to get it from the perspective of NAREP. And you two, our dear viewers, will be given an opportunity later on the program to join the conversation and give us your opinion pertaining to what we are discussing this afternoon. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mulenga.
Thank you so much, and good evening, our viewers out there.
Interesting. Well, I don't know whether 17 is usually evening, 18 is evening. I'm usually confused about that.
Yeah, sure.
But let's now proceed, Mr. Mulenga. Interesting enough, first of all, I want to get from yourself as NAREP. Is NAREP still a political party that can be deemed formidable and in the political landscape?
Yeah, National Restoration Party has been a party that has been in existence for some time now, and we're a political party that has been so solid. That's how come you realize that we've been a party that has been in existence for over 10 years. And as a party, we are one that has got structures across across the country. So meaning that we are still a strong political party, and we are here to exist as a party.
Others are of the view that the departure of Mr. Chipimo might have left NAREP paralyzed. What would be your immediate reaction to that?
NAREP is an institution. There are political parties that exist as political parties that are owned by individuals. Mm-hmm. But if you look at NAREP exists because it's an institution. So NAREP, the time that Mr. Chipimo was there as party president. And when he left and resigned, that's how come you saw that NAREP still continued. So even if any other person that would be president, when we got the convention, once probably they leave, the party will still continue. And this is what we would want to see in political parties in Zambia, where parties must outlive even the founder members. It explains how a party has been institutionalized. Mm-hmm. We've seen that the trend in Zambia is that there are political parties that are born out of individuals. Take, for instance, the Republican Party that was under the late Fred Wheeler. Immediately the president passed on of that political party, it became non-existent. Many politics have failed to live beyond the lifespan of that leader. And that's not how political parties are supposed to exist. Take for even PF, the time that Sata left, may he so rest in peace, we had situations where the party failed to thrive. The only thing that made them probably to survive was that he left it in government. Had he left it in opposition, believe me PF would have died a natural death.
But it went on to form government. That would be the argument, Mr. Mulenga.
I'm saying President Michael Sata, may he so rest in peace, he left the party whilst in government. You get my thinking? Mm-hmm. And because he left it in government, people were ministers, people were MPs and all that. It was easy for them to continue. Had Michael Sata died, for instance, in 2009, PF was going to be dead. So now, and this is what we are saying about political parties, they need to live beyond individuals. We need to exist because we are institutions. There are many political parties that will tell you that today they are living because of individuals. Take, for instance, Chilufya Tayali, Sentembo, and many others. These are political parties that are existing because of an individual who is Secretary General, they are party spokesperson, they want to become candidates if there's a by-election, they're just everything. But as for us, if you look at NAREP, we've got structures that are existing, meaning that even when an individual is to leave the organization, it still needs to survive. And that's how we are saying, as a party, we are different from these I would say national NECA political parties, because we are an institution.
And we have also seen that NAREP has also moved on to be part of the UPND alliance.
Yeah, sure.
And others have also pushed forward the notion that probably NAREP is going to be swallowed by the alliance.
Not at all. Mm-hmm. We are a political party. Mm-hmm. that has been in existence for some time. When we went into the 2021 elections, we realized as a party that what is more important are the lives of our people. What is it that we wanted to achieve? We realized that the country was going to ruin. So as a party, we said, let's find like minds that we can work with to salvage this country from where it was going. So we realized our partners, the UPN and many others that thought it wise for us to work together to form government. We worked together and we looked at issues that are very important for the nation, not as individuals, for the nation. And what we saw was that there was one thing that put us together, unity of purpose. We realized there was so much corruption, cadarism, and many other ills that the Zambian people can talk about. So that is what drove us to working with our colleagues in the UPND. And thank God, courtesy of the people of Zambia, they thought it wise that work together to redeem the country. That's why you saw the UPND win election together with ourselves.
But others have argued that the alliance, now we want to find out from you, other alliance partners are moving out. We have seen the likes of APC leader Nason Musoni saying that the alliance is a sham and that, the UPND has been selfish and not safeguarding other alliance partners. Do you feel the same as NAREP?
I would not speak for a political party that I do not belong to. He's got his own reasons.
But as NAREP, do you feel the same? Do you share the same sentiments?
As a party, National Restoration Party, we looked at it from this perspective. We need first to be selfless. Let's not think about alliances for individual aggrandizement, I would call it. We need to go to work with our colleagues for the sake of Zambia. And what we thought was that, what do we want to achieve as a country? And ours as National Restoration Party is how do we work with like minds to redeem this country. That is what propelled all of us to putting our heads together to achieve that goal. One of the reasons were that let's bring sanity in this country. Let's bring order in this country. Let's have leadership that is serious. And we said, let's work together. Let's not be selfish. Let's be selfless for the sake of the Zambian people.
Interesting. Well, Mr. Mulenga, you mentioned this interesting part about selfless now. So you were telling us that the alliance had no issues pertaining to alliance partners being safeguarded in terms of appointments or alliance members being considered when they are making decisions. You mean that they have been consulting the alliance because many people feel this alliance is dead, Mr. Mulenga?
First and foremost, if you saw what happened prior to the 2021 elections, we are all allowed to apply. That's why you saw that there are ministers in this government that came from the alliance. We've got members of parliament that came through the alliance. Minister Mtolo is from the alliance. Minister Mutati was from the alliance. Minister Milupi, I can go on and on. They are from the alliance. So meaning that there is room for all of us to find a role to play for the sake of this country called Zambia. And we can't all of us be gotten into government for all of it. It can't happen. Now, even the UPND themselves, there is no government that can swallow in everyone into government.
Now my next question would be, who from NAREP has been appointed? If we are talking about people from the Alliance for Democracy and Development, ADD, we have Mr. Milupi there, who is the Minister of Infrastructure. Now, if we look at the other aspect, we have the Movement for Democratic Change. We have Honorable Felix Mutati, who has been appointed, among others. But when we are citing NAREP, for example, whom have we seen? We have seen, for example, Mr. Kafumba of the NDC being appointed. But from NAREP, why have you been sidelined?
We haven't been sidelined. This government, and this is what we need to understand.
Are they doubting your input?
Not at all. Has a 5-year mandate. And we still have a long time to run in terms of government. So it's not something that you put into your mind that immediately from government, your preoccupation is to get jobs. Then we'll miss the point. What should preoccupy our minds are that how then do we help our Zambian people in accessing CDF, How do we help our Zambian people into getting bursaries? How do we help our Zambian people into getting free education? I think those are the core things that we need to pay attention to. And that's what NAREP is looking at, first and foremost.
Interesting. Well, our dear viewers, you are watching The People's Verdict with me, Patrick Soko, and my guest this afternoon is Mr. Martin Mulenga. He is the Deputy Secretary General of the National Restoration Party, NAREP, and we are discussing the impact of the high cost of living. Our beginning of the conversation, we were looking at the preamble of NAREP and where it stands in the political landscape. And moving on the program, our dear viewers, you too, in case you want to join the conversation, you can do so. Also leave us a message on our Facebook page so that we can get interacting. You can also ask our guest some questions in case you have questions for Mr. Mulenga. Now, moving on to other issues, Mr. Mulenga, I want to find out from yourself, first of all, what do you make regarding government's intervention to remove street vendors from the central business district of Lusaka, as well as ensure general cleanup of the city and other places of the country overall?
They say cleanliness is next to godliness. And we sympathize with our brothers, with our sisters. Those are our brothers and our own sisters. Even ourselves, we've got our sisters that have been trading in the markets and on the streets. But what we are looking at is that, is sanity a good thing to have in a country? I think all of us would agree with me that it's a very good thing. It's a noble cause. It's a noble thing to do. But what we are saying is that let's do things right. First and foremost, the Minister of Local Government did come out and mention that we still have spaces in these markets. City market has got spaces, and many other markets. Go to Charleston. There's still spaces where people can still trade. But people opted to leave the spaces that have been given to them in the markets to trade outside. Others were even renting out those same spaces that they were given, and they were getting money from the people that are renting to them, whilst they themselves were selling on the street. So there was that disorder. So let's try first to do things right. Let's have people in the markets. And if you pass through the streets of Lusaka now, you can park your car knowing that it's safe. The spaces where people are supposed to walk through are clear, and it's just a good thing to have. Yes, we sympathize with our traders, but we are doing right. Let's have sanity in the city and in the country. Then we can see how we can help each other.
The argument has been that our people will be highly impacted, especially that not everyone may be able to find trading spaces, and they have been pleading with the local authorities to help them find trading spaces. What would be your comment to that?
First and foremost, let's have the markets filled. Then let's have those appeals be given to Minister of Local Government to say the markets are full, and now those of us have been left out. How then can you help us? One thing at a time. Let's not do things upside down. I think this government is cognizant of that fact. That's why they are saying, let's fill up the markets. Once the markets are filled up, then what is it that we can do to help those that will be left out? Where can they trade? Let's move step by step. But we cannot leave it the way it is. Say, hey, just trade without having to do anything. Then we're not helping ourselves as a nation.
There's been a contention that this is a highly political matter, and that politicians tend to politicize this undertaking, because we are privy to the fact that successive governments have been able to undertake this operation of removing street vendors. Various administrations have been undertaking exercise. It be the MMD, it be the Patriotic Front. But when it comes, as it heads towards the election time, we see vendors start trooping back towards the CBD, and the governments become mute because they are saying to say when it's time for campaigns, so we are trying to make sure that we secure every vote. But what would be your advice regarding this move that government has undertaken, and how should it be sustained to avoid this tendency? Because this is not the first time we're talking about this, Mr. Mulenga. So what would be your word of advice?
I think this government has taken a very bold step as regards the removal of street vendors. It's a very bold step, and it takes leadership to come out in the manner that they did. And we commend government for having taken this step. And you see, sometimes politics must be done with decency. We saw what happened under our colleagues under the PF, where the ACG was probably talking about vendors and how they were so important and everything. I agree with him that vendors are very, people that are trading are very important. But let's have order in the manner that we are trading. And that is the approach this government is taking. So one step at a time. Let's not politicize things that are helping us as a nation. Let's take, for instance, we have breakouts of cholera. What would become of all of us? In the manner that you saw all those drainages blocked, water, sewer, and everything is just affluent, is just moving everywhere in town. And that was vividly for everyone to see in town that affluent was moving from the sewer pipes. And we are busy trading. It was not good enough for ourselves. We live the same things. We go in our homes and we want to sit in a good sitting room and pretend that everything is okay. Whilst where we are getting our food from is just not a proper place.
As we talk, Mr. Mulenga, we hear that vendors are running battles with the police, and that's in Kabwe. Now, what should be your weight? Because this, I think this is an operation that was conducted swiftly here in Lusaka. We did not see any riots or any confusion. Now we are seeing that in Kawe, it is a different story altogether. What would be your word of advice, or what would be your say or your comment generally?
I've seen pictures of what is happening in Kawe. Our people were complaining that the government was not giving them adequate notifications when it comes to having them to be removed from the streets. Now that the government is writing to them and giving through the council to say, move the streets. And now the people want to say, okay, we will not move. And they want to be adamant. My appeal to our people is that let's get to be civil in the way that we are doing things. All of us do sympathize with our people, and I think this government is a very listening government. I know that the police have not been overpowered, but the police are trying to be civil by wanting to engage our people in an orderly manner and wanting to respect their rights to do business. But obviously, the government is aware of what is happening in Kabwe, and measures will be taken. Because what the government wants to do is to bring just sanity for the betterment of all of us.
Interesting. Well, those of you watching us, especially those from Kawe, you can equally give us a call in case you want to share with us. We would want to get an update regarding what is happening that side in Kawe, so that you can also join the conversation. As Mr. Mulenga also gave his opinion pertaining to the matters that border on street vending. And you too, you can give us your perspective as our dear viewers. Now, we are talking about another issue now, Mr. Mulenga. Let's move to another issue. Another issue that has been pertinent in the country has been the issue of the high cost of living. Is that the endorsement of the National Restoration Party that citizens should be subjected to the high cost of living?
Who would want, really? Who would want the people to be subjected to high cost of living? I think none. Who would want to be in leadership to subject people to difficulties? No one would want to be in leadership to do that. This government has seen and know what is obtaining on the ground. Talk about, let me just pick one item to do with paper, meal. That is a very contentious issue. Yesterday, we saw the party spokesperson of the UPND.
In fact, before we bring in the issue of meal, I would want us so that we respond with vividly pertaining to that statement where Mr. Mwetwa was explaining that probably meal may be cheaper coming 2024. So let's get to listen to this clip then, so that you can give your perspective on this matter.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's have this clip pertaining to meal, where the UPND spokesperson, Mr. Cornelius Mwetwa, was addressing the media as of yesterday, where he was highlighting issues on what they are doing the government is doing to address the high cost of meal. And then that story also mentioned the issue of the purported comeback of former President Edgar Lungu as the Patriotic Front president And we are aware that previously former President Edgar Lungu did refute any claims that he may want to come back. But however, this is politics, and we continue to observe as events continue to unfold. So let's get to play this clip regarding Cornelius Mwetwa yesterday, who was addressing the press.
Former Republican President Edgar Lungu's public appearance have continued to spark controversy, especially in the political scene, with some claiming his movement might be inspired by political comeback. Some have accused the former president of attempting to undermine the UPND administration and inciting unrest among his supporters. However, according to the ruling party, the public appearance being made by the former head of state is among his constitutional right. The party, through its spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa, charges that if the movement being made by the former head of state is inspired by a political comeback, he risks losing his retirement benefits. Mr. Mwetwa was speaking during a media briefing in Lusaka Monday morning.
There is this nagging question which keeps coming. Are you afraid of President Lungu's comeback? Let me answer it once and for all. We, as UPND, are not afraid of President Lungu's possible political comeback. We, if there is something are concerned about, is the people of Zambia, because they are the ones who vote for a president and all elected officials, not an individual person.
Meanwhile, the party says government is working toward addressing the escalating mealie meal price.
I'm very sure that in the turnaround of the year 2024, we should be able to see mealie meal price stability in Zambia towards affordability, so that we should not just have a stable mealie meal price, we should have an affordable mealie meal price, not by some, but by all our citizens. That is the vision of President Hakainde Hichilema.
And speaking at the same event, UPND Lusaka Province Chairperson Obvious Mwaliteta discloses that the party will not change its stance on issues regarding cadres.
About what is happening in terms of cadreism which wants to come back. And I'm taking full responsibility now as a provincial chairman that indeed this device is trying to come back. And I want to assure the Zambian people, the people of Lusaka province, that won't allow it to come back. The 10-year rule of HH, there will never be cadreism. And the area we accept that there won't be cadreism in his 10-year rule, the better.
Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Well, there you have it. That's an interesting story there, where the UPND is actually clarifying various issues. We had 3 topics in that story, but we'll start with the mealie meal aspect. And you wanted to also comment when I asked you about the high cost of living, and you also cited the issue of mealie meal. Should Zambians wait up to 2024 for them to have to be able to purchase mealie meal at an affordable price?
You know, mealie meal is a staple food, and all of us depend on mealie meal. There are no shops where you and I probably would go and buy at a different price other than our colleagues out there. All of us will get at the price at which they are selling in terms of traders. So we feel the same impact. And in saying so, we are cognizant of the fact that fertilizer in the 2022-2023 farming season was expensive. And we would not want, I think any responsible leadership would not want to take away the much effort that these farmers had put in terms of having to produce the grain. If they were getting seed, fertilizer at probably at a higher price, probably per hectareage or per lima that they needed to produce, they needed to get back recoup the money that they had put in, plus some profit. So as a result of the cycle in which we went through in terms of production, obviously the government thought through that and said, okay, for the farmer to get something at the end of the day, let's have the price of grain be put at 230. So it's all, yes, it's all because of wanting to appreciate the farmers for what they've done. And in return, this has turned out to us, the consumers, by having to get the mealie meal at a higher price. So we need to look at it holistically and not just to look at the product. Where is this product coming from? At what cost was it produced? Then we'll be able to appreciate that this is how come we are buying the grain, the mealie meal at this price. So now, what are the remedial measures that this government is taking into consideration to having the price come to affordable levels? And the government now is telling us that this is how we're going to do it. Number one, they are saying we need to have fertilizer produced locally. Unlike the way we were getting our fertilizer from other countries, having to pay for more, the issue of Ukraine, all that has got ripple effects on ourselves as a nation. So now, what do we do? Have fertilizer be produced locally. That is one of the reasons that we're saying fertilizer come next year would be cheaper, and the grain probably would be cheaper, and the mealie meal eventually would be cheaper. These are the measures that that government is taking into consideration. But these are not overnight measures, I must mention. These need to take through a process. So what we are saying is that we are sympathizing with our friends and ourselves because we buy the same mealie meal. But this government is not sitting idle about this situation. They are looking at measures on how, at the end of the day, us who are consumers be given what we are able to afford. And that's basically what the party spokesperson of the UPND was talking about. And we do agree with him.
My next question would be, would it be that the UPND Alliance had engaged in what others may term as deception during the campaign process? Because when you were campaigning, this explanation of us producing fertilizer locally were not there. When you were, the UPND Alliance was assuring the people, it was saying that when we come into government, fertilizer will be cheaper and people will be buying affordable mealie meal. And there were no explanation of these processes that were there. And Zambians probably were making decisions based on that. So in short, was that deception part of the campaign gimmick?
No deception at all. You know, governance is not an easy undertaking. When we go into leadership, the magnitude of the problem that the new Dawn government has found itself into is quite gigantic, I would call it. It's quite so big for us to change things overnight. Look at the issue to do with the debt that we found ourselves into as a nation.
Which the UPND Alliance was aware while in opposition.
Yes.
That the country is highly indebted.
Yes. And our approach towards debt has been different from the way our colleagues were handling it. This country, literally, there was no money in the coffers because money was plowed into infrastructure, which in itself was not a bad thing. But the manner in which we borrowed, the manner in which we spent the money, it was so reckless. How do you allow a government that is there to look after the affairs of our people to do a target, toll plaza at an amount of $5 billion? How would you allow a government that is responsible to buy fire tenders at $42 million? So there are those issues. So now, this government that has come in realized this problem. How then do we handle this? Immediately, this government came into office. The president did come out and mention that we need to restructure this debt for us to have breathing space as a nation. And for sure, within the 2 years space, this government has managed to negotiate part of the debt. And this is in their quest to making sure that we start receiving what we need to receive as a nation. So efforts are being put in place to making sure that us, the citizenry, do benefit from what we need to have as a nation.
But the same government is being accused by the likes of the Socialist Party that it is a puppet government that is tweeted towards the West, in that it is prioritizing the World Bank, IMF, the United States, and other Western countries like the US, and that it's a puppet government. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, these socialist ideologies, I think most of it, they are alien, I think, to Zambia. Let's not take away the gains that we've had as a nation over a period of time since independence. We are members of the World Bank. We are members of the United Nations. We are members of the IMF. So, from time immemorial, we've always been members. The question is, how did the World Bank come into existence? What were the reasons why the World Bank had to come into existence? The reason why is simple. The reason was to help out. Countries agreed. How then do we help ourselves as a world if we have got situations where there's a problem? Let's have a pool of resources where we can help. We'll be helping out. Even the countries that are propagating for socialist ideologies, they are members of the World Bank.
What would be your opinion that the institutions like the IMF are there to stifle the economies of smaller countries like Zambia?
We are a developing country.
And that no country has developed using an IMF bailout system. Those arguments are some of the arguments the critics are advancing.
When we are preparing our own, let's say, budget, we have ideas of our own. We are a sovereign state. And as a sovereign state, we have things that we need to do as a nation. And when we cry, even the PF, they were crying to the IMF, which they failed to obtain. They cried for the bailout, they cried for this, and they saw through them how they were so reckless. They couldn't give them. Lazard was contracted by the PF regime. And they turn around now that they're talking about IMF, this is the hypocrisy that they're talking about in politics. The socialists, there is no country in Africa that have got ideologies of the socialism. Tell me one today. And we can't be an exception. These leftist ideas that they are pushing forward, most of the countries that are under socialism, tell me one that is doing very well on earth today. Most of them are being led by...
We have mixed systems like China has.
I'll tell you one.
Isn't China doing fine?
Democracy entails...
You asked for me to provide a...
and I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you.
Are you agreeing with me on that one?
Let me come back to you in this way. We have... I don't want to mention countries, but I will tell you that democracy has come to stay in this country. Most of these socialist ideas does put power in few individuals. And the ideology that they are pushing for of nationalization and whatever, we are living in a global village where we are interdependent. And we don't want to have a country that is so inclined to one group of leftist ideas. What we are saying is that let's embrace everyone. If we are friends to China, let it just be friends. If we are friends to UK, friends to whoever, let us believe that we can live as friends to anyone. But this approach that certain people are coming out with, that if you want them from Zambia, but you know, this country, from time immemorial, we've lived as one. And we have friends to anyone. But immediately you see political parties coming on the scene, just saying, I don't want to be a friend with this one. Me, my friend is just that one. Just get to understand, these are problems. And we saw how some countries that were put under sanctions, being pushed by socialist ideas, how they suffered. Zimbabwe is next to us here. Would you agree with me that Zimbabwe is just next to us? We saw how they came out believing that they would do this, they would do that.
But it's the same Western countries that are giving sanction to Zimbabwe.
No, I'm telling
they have sanctioned Zimbabwe.
I'm telling you that Zimbabwe, they left them to do things by themselves. Get the point? And having left them...
punishing someone, so Zambia is afraid of being...
we don't need to be punished.
Okay, now, the argument is this. why should all the policies that are being imposed on Zambia are treated towards capitalists and not safeguarding the interest of citizens? And let's say, for instance, why isn't the industrialization part of the alliance that you support? We are not seeing radical industrialization that is Zambian driven. Are you privy to that?
I'll tell you, Mr. Soko and our viewers out there.
Are we making progress to that effect?
This country, we have a ministry of small scale. And this country is pushing...
That is giving loans just...
And also promoting small scale, entrepreneurs.
Without significant capital.
And medium scale entrepreneurs. And at the same time, we are, as government, they are promoting Zambians to get into mining. Artisan mining, at small scale, just small scale, they are being promoted so they can have something for what they have.
Why not big scale?
They are giving licenses to our own Zambians. The CCMIH is getting got shares in Kansanshi there. So as a country, let's be serious with the way the approach that we've taken. We are saying, let government do the governing. Let the people do what they can to empower their lives.
The rich few have money.
No, this government is not saying the rich few. Everyone else, you and I, can get into...
Where, with which capital?
Capital, the best capital first and
because
foremost.
we are seeing, Mr. Mulenga, you and I are privy to the fact that our friends who are coming from Asia, for instance, into this country to come and do business, they come with huge capital in whichever industry they are venturing into. Those, for example, those who are constructing our roads, those are state entities, and they are attacking the world, and they are conquering the world, and they are conquering us as small countries. But what are we doing ourselves to make sure that we also conquer the world? Isn't that the next discourse that we need to be championing as a nation?
Actually, what this government is saying is that, number one,
yes,
let's have a conducive environment from which you and I can do business.
Exactly.
From. And that's how come they are coming up with policies. They've put in policies that will favor you and I. You've seen that there are certain adverts that will be put in the papers deliberately, which will say Zambian-owned companies will be given preference. This goes down to tell you that we are looking at our own first. They are saying if there's a road to be done, 20%, let it go to Zambians. You don't have capital.
Why not 80%?
If you have 80%, but let's have a starting point of everything. Let's have a starting point.
Why not 40%, Mr.
How I wish it was 40%. But what I'm saying is
would you be happy?
Obviously, I would be happy.
40.
Even 100, I would be happy. But what you are saying is that let's have a starting point.
Because that I want you to add this factor because, for example, under PF, we're still dealing with the same 2030. Under this government, that the UPND government, that you also term to be progressive, why can't we also increase the percentage of Zambian contractors participating, especially in the
actually,
sector?
like I did allude to earlier on, I'm saying...
Because your critics would argue to say, yeah, we did that.
I'm adding on where we're coming from to say it would even be better that we have got Zambian-owned companies that are doing business. And we have them, actually. There are certain roads that are being done wholly by Zambians. We have them. So we have got a good starting point. What I wanted to drive home at is this. We have a conducive environment from which you can do business. Take, for instance, the CDF money that's been upped, over 25 million. Who are doing the desks? Our local people are doing the desks. This devolution of power from Lusaka to where it matters most in the constituencies, we've seen graders now everywhere in Zambia. Mandevu a grader, Bwana Mkubwa a grader, compactor. We are spreading the resources. Desks being done, schools being built. This is how development comes.
You mentioned an interesting aspect, for example, under CDF, for example. Why can't, for example, Zambians come up with a large contractor, for example, who is able to take up roads throughout the city, but this contractor is empowered because we have resources from CDF. Now, look at for this instance where if each constituency is buying its own graders and everything, why not put the resources together, build this entity that can be able to undertake roadworks. That is Zambian owned, and also recruit more Zambians to be able to participate. Why aren't we thinking in those directions so that we drive the agenda of making Zambians big as well?
I think you're just speaking my language. You're just speaking my language. ZNS today, as we are speaking, are into that. We've got bridges that are being done by ZNS. Is that not Zambian? Zambians. So they got Zambian National Service, Zambians, doing the roads, doing bridges. That is Zambian. So there are things that have been put in place to making sure that Zambians get involved. And this government has made sure that we are getting involved. You see, just in 3 years, believe me, this CDF thing will be a game changer. There were places that were deprived of even just a small car called the Corolla. The constituencies today, for projects, they've got Land Cruisers. For projects, each constituency, never seen before, we have them now. So let's go and check the school. They will not need to call someone from Lusaka to say, give us a car, give us a, from there. Why am I checking on Musebo? Why am I checking a school within the constituency? All these are progressive ideas this government has put in place. The desks, they are saying, you as locals, make desk for this school. These are progressive ideas. And how better can it be? This is the first year. Second year, 3 years. Believe me, the Zambian people will appreciate these ideas of devolution.
As we come towards the end of our conversation, Mr. Mulenga, I want to also learn from you, should Zambians remain optimistic that the cost of living will eventually calm down and that we are in the right path to economic recovery?
There's light at the end of the tunnel. That's the word that I would give to Zambian people. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Because we've got leadership that is in place under the able leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema, who wants to better our lives. He's always moving to wanting to get things that we need as a nation. Number one is created a sound relationship with the world. Zambia today is in good standing with most of our colleagues because of the leadership that we have in place. And this is how we need to operate. And this president now is saying, let's have sanity in this country. Let's have development. 2 years from now, all of us will be able to see the good things that will come from this government. I know when you are coming out from a situation that is hard, we would complain. But at the end of the day, we'll come to realize that really they meant well for this country. Because this school is because of this CDF. These desks that the children are sitting on are coming because of the idea that came from this leadership. The bursaries that our children are getting, which they never used to get at the time that our colleagues were in power, they are able to have them now. And this is what we would expect of a leadership that listens and cares for its people. And we feel that we are in the right direction, and given a period of time, this mandate that we have in government, we'll see many things coming up, and there is so much light at the end of the tunnel.
Interesting. Mr. Mulenga, I want to thank you for finding time with us on the People's Verdict.
The pleasure is mine. And thank you, viewers, for having taken time to listen to us.
Interesting. Well, our dear viewers, this is where we have to call it a day on the People's Verdict today. And my guest has been Mr. Martin Mulenga. He is the Deputy National Secretary for the National Restoration Party, NAREP. And we had a good conversation. But in case you missed, you can still get to our stream and be able to follow the proceedings. And I will be glad to also hear where you are watching us from. And thank you for having fine time to watch this week's edition of the People's Verdict. This has been Patrick Soko. Until next week when we come with another interesting program here on Camnet TV. Remember that Camnet TV is not just another channel.